This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah.
Jarvis, it's great to meet you. Where's Micah?
Well, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm your co-host, Micah Shilanski, and with me, as usual, the legendary Matthew Jarvis.
Micah, it's good to see you, though I guess as we're recording this is virtual. We spent the last weekend together in person doing our TPR live event with some 70 advisors, and it was one hell of a good time.
Oh my gosh, I had a blast, right? True Confessions coming out. I'm reading St. Augustine's True Confessions book, or Confessions anyway. So interesting mindset on that one. But as I go through this, leading up to these live events, sometimes it's like, why in the hell are we doing these? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy for everyone to put into, to get done, for all of these things to take place. And then you show up to the event, we meet the advisors, we start making an impact, we energize, and it's like, oh yes, this is why we do this, right? Sometimes with all aspects of life, it's you get caught up in the day-to-day work and all these things that then you realize that why you're doing it in the end. So sometimes keeping that eye on the prize and having these live events, 70 people in the live event, which is freaking outstanding. And the feedback that we got from people that we're going to go through was great. And that Value Smackdown was a ton of fun.
Now, if I can confess, head trash going into this is, can we in fact deliver value to these 70 advisors, right? My head trash. Now, sure. Objectively, I know that's true, right? Objectively, we can say, hey, we've had 1 million downloads on the podcast. All these people paid to attend. They know what they're getting. But you and I practiced for days ahead of time. We were there up that night practicing because we wanted to make sure we deliver massive value. And I mention that because for our advisors listening, sometimes we think, hey, somebody at some level doesn't have head trash. Somebody at some level is walking right into their meetings and delivering massive value. Maybe I haven't met that person. When you have head trash, so the best way to push through that for events is practice, practice, practice. So that you know, we knew walking this, hey, we're going to deliver our A game. And by the way, if by chance this wasn't the right content for somebody, great, we'll refund their money. And we'll move on to the day. But as you mentioned, Mike, I think I counted literally every single person came up to us and said, hey, this was transformative. This gave me exactly what I needed. One guy came up to us literally in tears after the very first session saying, that first session alone was worth my entire trip here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that really is the impact of getting successful advisors together. Now, I'm going to use the term successfully a little broad. I want to say open-minded, but now that has such a crap context with it. I don't want to say that. But advisors together that are committed to success. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Advisors together that are committed to success, pushing things forward and making sure that they're making a difference in the practice, because they come to it with saying, great, I know I'm delivering value, but I want to deliver more value. I know I have processes in place, but I want better processes in place. I know I have a good team, but I want even a better team and put these things. And when you come into these conferences with that mindset, it is so amazing how much open and sharing we're going to do. And maybe this is a little too much bragging on our conference, but I really love the transparency that we have in a lot of things in our conference. Nope, this is exactly what's going on. And then other advisors even come up on stage and it's like, all right, who has a problem? And people raise their hand. Fantastic. Who's willing to step up on stage? And still hands go up. We grab somebody and they're like totally open and transparent with the real issue that they're struggling with. And then you can look around in the room and you can see a lot of heads going up and down, being like, yep, either I've been there or man, I got that same issue.
Oh, totally. And it was interesting. We had every advisor, and this is a great way to do any event. We had every advisor in attendance write down what their number one question was. Then there was some overlap, but there was roughly 60 different questions. And somebody said, hey, how are you going to possibly get through all of these 60 questions? And we thought for a second, we said, really, if you peel this back down, right, it all comes back to there's something I need to be doing in my practice that I just haven't had the forcing mechanism to do, right? Hey, I want to deliver more value to clients. I want to manage my team better. I want to manage my calendar better. Almost all these boil down to we need some kind of forcing mechanism around it, because however we're living our life, however we're viewing it, we're justifying the way that we're doing it instead of finding a solution for what it is we need.
And it's all about having a guided path to get there as well, right? Because there's so many things in our practices that we could look at that we want to improve, we want to change, et cetera. But how do we boil those down to some pretty basic areas? So we had this thing called a practice analyzer that we've used. We went through it together. We had everybody fill it out. And it really kind of breaks your practice down into 4 areas. Now, you could easily say, well, that should be 6, it should be 2, it should be whatever. Yeah, we got to start somewhere, right? So in our minds, this is the 4 areas that make the most impact. And we went through the day kind of explaining what these 4 areas were. We went through exercise to quantify where you were at in these areas. And then awesome, how do you double your value in every single one of these areas? Now, you got to pick only one at the end of the day. Right. And we broke up into different groups, which was kind of cool. So we broke them into 4 different groups so people could say what was their top priority. And we got together and started going through that. And Jarvis, I really enjoyed going through that because everyone in there was almost at the exact, regardless of revenue levels and AUM, mentally, they were about the exact same places to where they were versus where they wanted to be. So to create that little support network and then really help people double the value in those areas was pretty freaking fun.
Yeah, and for our listeners, you can email lifestyle@theperfectRIA, and Tracy will work with you to get you that practice analyzer. And depending on your feedback and how serious you are about analyzing your practice, she can even work through that with you. Lifestyle@theperfectRIA. But it was a lot of fun, Micah. One of my favorite things in the practice analyzer, and this is something I learned from you doing masterminds, is let's take the number of clients you have. Let's call it 100 for easy math. Let's take how many hours on average you're serving each client. So let's say you're doing 2 meetings a year, that's an hour. Let's say that it takes an hour of prep for each of those meetings. Now we're up to 4. Let's say you have an hour of miscellaneous thing, let's call it 5. Let's round it up to 10. So 100 clients times 10 hours, which I think no advisor is actually spending 10 hours directly with clients.
I was just about to say that
another day. That's 1,000 hours. Where are the other 1,000 hours going? And no one
Jarvis,
usually has an answer for that. Please, Micah.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is such a key point because at one point, we were having lunch the next couple of days because we stayed after to wrap some stuff up. And actually another advisor just happened to be there and I was chatting with him and hadn't heard about TPR, hadn't heard about surge meetings. Like, you living under a rock? No, just kidding. Yeah. But it's a lot of areas that he can grow. And he's like, well, what is this thing all about? And very simply, this is what I love about that example you just gave. Very simply, I walked him through those numbers and you could see him just sit back in his chair and be like, holy crap, what am I doing with my time? And then we go into justification mode, right? Now, justification mode, we all know and we all do. For example, here's the easy thing I like to do. I say this with clients, the same thing as myself. It's like, Mr. Mrs. Client, here's how my credit card statement works is I run my credit card every single day, every single month, whatever it is, and charge it on there. Now, mentally, I'm keeping a balance of it and it's a very low balance. Then my credit card statement comes in and I look at it and I'm like, holy crap, who spent all that money? And then I just justify everywhere that I've spent my money. I get into justification mode, right?
That's right.
That's right. It's the same thing we all do with our credit cards. And it's the same thing we all do with our time as well, right? Because we don't want to look back and say we made a bad decision. But you know what? Making a bad decision doesn't make you a bad person. It means we're learning. And we got to push these bounds from time to time. And so when you start looking at the math inside of this, and this particular guy had like 98 clients, it's like, perfect, we'll make it 100. So walked him through that same example. And I only used the 5 hours. So that's 500 hours.
Realistic, yeah.
Right. I was like, what are you doing with the other 3/4 of the year? And his answer was, well, the answer behind this is I do a lot of trading. I do a lot of research. I'm like, okay, great. Let's just say that's 100 hours a year. Let's just throw that in there. Now you're at 600 hours for the year. Like, what else are you doing with your time? And we play office a lot, and having a quantifiable measurement to score that, because we need to measure what matters, right? So if we can measure these things, now we can improve these things.
Yeah. And Micah, I mean, playing office is a term that we use all the time. It's very rare for me to meet an advisor. And actually, it's less rare now, but it says, hey, I was playing office there. That's where you look and say, boy, if I'm perusing the internet, I'm playing office, right? If I'm in the office 40 hours and I wasn't because I was meeting with 30 clients, there's a lot of playing office going on. So you've got to be, I don't say hard on yourself, but you really got to cut this down. Just like if you're trying to do a budget, like, hey, listen, you're blowing too much money eating out. That's just it. You're spending too much time on research. Give it a 4-hour block in the week or whatever period of time you think it needs. Only do research during that block. No telephone calls, no emails, no reading the Wall Street Journal, whatever that means. And then look at it again. But it's so easy to bounce around from topic to topic. Oh, Micah, we broke into subgroups and I did the ABC 1, 2, 3 exercise.
Oh my gosh, you're in the effectiveness group. That's fantastic.
Yes. So if you haven't done this at home, do this at home. So take a piece of paper out, and what you're going to do, you need a timer and a piece of paper. The first time through, you're going to time yourself writing out the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You're going to get to Z, and then you're going to write the numbers 1 through 26, right? So time that, A through Z, 1 through 26. Then you're going to write down your time. And then the second time, you're going to start the timer again, and you're going to go A1, B2, C3, D4, et cetera, until you get to Z and 26. Now, that's the same number of pen strokes, right? You're doing the exact same project. You will find, though, that almost without fail, either your time will go up dramatically or your error rate will go away. We had one guy that got it done at the exact same time. And I said, I've never seen that happen. And I look, and all of his stuff was wrong. Like he was just
scrambling. Yeah. Yeah.
And the example, again, you have to do this. Don't think through it. You have to do it because it'll blow your mind. Those are on two of the simplest tasks we could possibly imagine. Now, when you go to a real practice where you're dealing with taxes and compliance and team members and all this kind of stuff, and you think we could bounce back and forth, that's where all your time is going.
Yeah, it really is. And I always like to say it. So if I look I'm just to take the playing office, right? So if I look at the playing office and I say, well, these are the things that I can do and where's my time going, et cetera. For me, that's a hard time when I start looking at my 40 hours and saying, when am I playing office and not? This is just for me personally. Yeah. So here's the way that I like to look at it. I like to say, these are the only things that are not playing office. That's it. Versus what is playing office. So great, meeting with clients, prospecting, business strategy and development, right? Those are my three big things. And if I'm doing those, that is not playing office. That means anything besides those three tasks are playing office in some capacity. And sometimes we do those, right? I'm guilty as the next person of liking to research things and liking to do it. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. But give it a place to live and don't justify it saying you're adding all this value. No, you're not. You're playing around on the internet. Fantastic. Save it for 30 minutes on a Friday and just do it then.
Yeah. Yeah. Same goes true. And I know we've done a lot of episodes on this. And sometimes I feel like we're beating the proverbial dead horse on this thing. But I run into advisors again. It's something I have to constantly watch for as well. For example, any alerts or pop-ups or interruptions, be it from email or your phone or instant message from your team, that's all playing office. That is not a productive way to communicate short of the building being on fire.
Jarvis, you made a comment about beating a dead horse. So you like to work out, right? You're this CrossFit kind of guy. You like doing that stuff.
It doesn't show, but I do like it. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. But you already know about it. So there's really no reason you should go to the gym or practice it because you already know about it, right?
Yeah. Why am I paying $200 a month for an empty gym? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something it's not, in my opinion, so I'm going to push back on you, but it's not just beating a dead horse. We need to constantly reinforce key principles to make sure we're hyper successful in these areas. Otherwise, we're just human nature. We're all going to get lazy. We're all going to go do something else. So we got to come back to these core things. Your morning success ritual. What are you doing every single morning? How are you doing putting your mind in a good place before you kick off the day? Are you going to the gym? How are you working out? What's your eating schedule look like when you move into surge? How do you prep into these things, right? These are things we constantly have to go over to be hyper successful.
Oh, totally. Mike, if you don't mind, I want to pivot just a little bit. One of our guest speakers was our good friend, Benjamin Brandt, who runs a phenomenal practice. He's works now with Retirement Tax Services on a consumer-facing podcast that generates leads for financial advisors with a tax focus. Benjamin gave a great presentation on charging a fee equal to your value. And he said something at the beginning, Micah, that I loved. He said, hey, how many of you are charging the same fee today that you charged 5 years ago or 7 years ago?
Right.
And several hands went up. So he says, okay, so are you the same advisor today that you were 5 years ago, or are your skills better? Have they improved? Oh, of course they've improved. Cool. Were you overcharging then, or are you undercharging now? Which one is it? And it's a good exercise. Like, hey, either you were dramatically overcharging then, or you're dramatically undercharging now. It's a way to get your wheels turning. Either way, odds are that you're delivering far more value than you're charging. Therefore, you probably need to be looking at charging your fees, or as he suggested, at least levelizing your fees. Stop having exceptions. Stop having tiers, all this baloney. Jump right into it.
Yeah, I just absolutely love that, Jarvis, when we think about it. And if this is one of the things that you're starting to get a little offended by, you're starting to get a little ruffled under the feathers, sure. Good. Because guess what? In order to think critically, we must risk being offensive. And you need to look at yourself in a critical aspect of it. And even though we don't like some of the things that we pull back, we got to look at it and say, hey, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for self-esteem and for likes, or am I doing this to add massive value to clients? I know what my priority is, and it sure as hell ain't likes. It's massive value to clients is what I'm solving for. That means I got to poke and prod at myself to make myself better. Therefore, I can be a better advisor. I can work better with clients. Yesterday, I had to meet with my widow. It was her husband just passed away.
A widowed client.
A widowed client.
I was just saying, wait, something went strange. You're meeting with your widow.
My widow. Yeah. My widowed clients. So her husband just passed away. One of the things I've mentioned many times, I really hate doing. Something we have to do as advisors, right? Key, just for me, I don't like it. Well, I can't stop at something just because I don't like it. I got to push into it. I got to learn more about the dying process. I got to learn more on these communication skills. Her kids were in with the meeting with it. Okay, awesome. I really had to be able to body language wise work the room and understand where people were. And so these are skills that I've learned over time that I didn't want to do because they're uncomfortable to learn about, but I needed to do to add massive value to my clients. And we can look at it easily and say, well, clearly that makes sense. You're working with a client. Well, guess what? It makes sense when you're looking at your effectiveness too. Where are you spending your time? Your profitability? How are you valuing yourself? All of these things come together, and you got to peel that back a little bit and push harder into it.
Yeah, and really look, where am I making excuses? Where am I defending it? And where am I saying, hey, this is an area I need to get better at, right? And we have, there's a very small but vocal group that likes to come after us and say, you guys are bullies, you're mean, whatever the case may be. And you can spend your time in saying, wow, Jarvis and Micah, they said some real mean thing that I thought was about me. It probably wasn't, or you can say, hey, actually, my practice, I really need to up my game. My tax game is not that good. My productivity game is not that good. I need to find someone who has a really good game, and I need to copy genius, right? Instead of trying to invent mediocrity.
Jarvis, sorry, I'm going to rant on this just for a quick second.
Please.
I always think it's so hilarious because I was talking to a couple of team members and whatnot. And at my team at Shilanski Associates with some of the drama, because they kind of follow the LinkedIn stuff and what goes on. And they're like, I can't believe that they would do this. And it's like, have they ever met Jarvis? He's like a really nice guy. Then one of our team members said, yeah, Mike, it's not like you were. I was like, oh, not like what? And she's like, well, he's kind of nice compared to you. It's like, that's 100% a true statement, right? You're a really nice guy, but they're going to go after these things on LinkedIn or after these things on social for whatever reason that's going to be there. Sorry, I just thought it was funny from a team experience.
Yeah. It is. Well, the grass is always greener, right? And your team doesn't report to me. So how my team might describe it would be different, because there are times, just like my kids. Sometimes my kids think I'm a nice guy, and sometimes they think I'm a real jerk. But that's how it goes sometimes. So I guess to tie this back around, just don't make excuses for your success. Or for your failure. Yes. Don't beat yourself up for it either. Like, just be like, I'm an idiot, I can't do this right. Nope, somebody's doing this better than me. What is Micah doing to meet with 40 clients a week? Now, I might be able to say, hey, that's not the number I'm going to get to. Maybe I don't have that skill set, but 4 is too few. How would I get that to 8? What can I duplicate that Micah's doing to get that to 12 or to 15 or whatever the next level is?
And the other thing that we're looking at inside here, you got to be really intentional on what you're solving for. So one of the things I like to tell people all the time is say, hey, my time machine's broke. Maybe you fixed yours, but presently mine's broke. So there's nothing I can do about the past. Yeah. There is a lot I can do about the future, and that starts today. What decisions am I making now will affect the future? Nothing I can do about the past. So Jarvis, your aspect of not beating yourself up, that's exactly what it is. If there's nothing I can do about it, I'm not going to sweat about it. I'm going to move on. There's plenty of things that I need to worry about that I can make decisions on today, right? So how about I just limit that discussion and those worries to that? So speaking of that, Jarvis, this podcast is all about action items. Why don't we bounce into some fun action items, things that our listeners can do this week?
Man, I wanted to talk about the value smackdown, but I guess that's going to have to be a future episode. So action items, value, that's a teaser right there. How was that?
That was a great teaser.
Teaser, value smackdown was amazing. Thank you, Jason, again for participating in that. Action items, get the practice analyzer. So email lifestyle@theperfectRA, get a copy of the practice analyzer, and start going through that. And then as you go through it, I think my second action item, because I'm going to take the first 2, Micah, put whatever it is you need to work on, put it on a Post-it note and attach it to your computer. Make sure it's on the positive, like, hey, I'm going to do focus hours in 1-hour blocks, or I'm going to do activities that are worth more than $1,000 an hour. But pick an area. I mean, I like to pick 10, but pick one and really focus on that.
And I would say create hard forcing mechanisms for you to get out of the office, right? This is something we can all do. Like, I don't miss dates with my wife. I don't miss airplane rides, right? I don't miss picking my kids up from an event or taking them to an event. Now, if it says I'm going to get home for dinner, okay, well, dinner could be between 6 and 6:30. Dinner could be at 7, right? Yeah. In my mind, that's a much more of a movable number. So when I'm doing this and saying, hey, I need to get better at a skill, I need to get something done more efficiently, I'm going to create a hard forcing mechanism. I have to take my daughter to horse riding lessons at noon. Great. I got to be wrapped up and done to go pick her up and to take her to those lessons. That's a third-party accountability that's there. So when you're thinking about this, create more third-party accountabilities in your life to force and limit how much time you have to spend. And you're going to find you're only going to do the things that matter.
Well, that's a really good insight, Micah, right? Know where you're reliable and know where you're not. And instead of beating yourself up on where you're not reliable, figure out, how do I stack this with something that I'm reliable to do? I love that. Well, as again, this podcast is about taking action. One of the great things you can do if you enjoy the podcast is, of course, spread the news. go ahead and post it on LinkedIn, on your social media. Be sure to give it 5 stars. Feel free to send an email to lifestyle@theperfectRIA if there's a topic you'd like us to cover or a guest who is successful that you'd like us to have on the podcast for our What Works Wednesday segments.
Awesome. Jarvis, it's always fun hanging out with you. Thank you guys so much for our listeners. Make sure you jump out, give us 5 stars. Come on, you made it this far. You got to give us 5 stars. And until next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice.